I feel
trying to
like
get a
that's a
handle on it.
Jake
Huh.
shutdowns.
All right, Dan, thank you. Welcome to the morning meeting, live and in progress. We're talking about what's going on because that's our responsibility to you, the great North American viewing public. Thank you for joining the morning meeting, the very last episode of 2004. We're delighted to have you with us. We look forward to telling you about what's going on and to taking your questions. And at the end of the program, a few holiday surprises. Thank you for being part of the two-way community. If you're watching on YouTube, love you being there. Love the fact that in the spirit of the holiday season and peace, love, and understanding, you have to some extent kept garbage out of the chat lately. Incredible. When we get our next big profile of Dan, probably be of Dan, because Sean and I have no interest anymore to anybody. It's going to be incredible how much they talk about Dan's smile has deterred garbage from the chat. The other thing about Dan, did you watch Two Way Tonight last night?
I did not. I'll be honest.
Okay. All right. I didn't think you were on, and you usually are. One of the most incredible moments in the evolution of Dan Turrentine media celebrity was a guy
Uh-oh.
came on and he was describing his kind of political ideology. He's a moderate Democrat. He voted for Nikki Haley. He was something. They said, I guess you could say I'm a Dan Turrentine Democrat. So
Wow.
all of a sudden, you're a brand. You're a brand of Democrat. So I love that. And if you're watching here on the two-way platform, welcome in. You get to see Sean Spicer for an extra minute, which is a luxury not everyone has. Sean, how is it feeling in the Schumer era on the precipice of the Schumer shutdown? How are you feeling?
It's a mixed question. I don't, you can tell by my voice, I'm a little under the weather. So personally, not not on my A game, but I'm this is gonna be fun watching down. But I will tell you, I said it yesterday on the show. I think what you're gonna see today is as close to a clean CR kicking in the can into January as I predicted yesterday.
Yeah, I think you might be right. We'll get to that in a moment. First, a look at today's daybook. All right, President Biden, who we'll be discussing in a moment because he's president and there might be a shutdown of his government. 210, he goes and visits patients and families at Children's Hospital, National Hospital with Jill Biden. It's great that he's doing that. 12:15, the White House press secretary will brief, and she will be taking no quarter or giving no quarter to Republicans in the messaging wars over a potential shutdown. So if you got nothing better to do at 12:15, I recommend that briefing. It's going to be sizzling. The Vice President of the United States, let me read this carefully so I don't get it wrong. She will be in Washington, D.C., where she will receive briefings and conduct internal meetings with staff. These meetings will be closed press. Donald Trump, no public events. J.D. Vance, no public events, but presumably spending a lot of the day on Capitol Hill trying to unstick the stuck. And we'll talk about that and J.D. Vance in just a moment. Congress, as I wrote in the daybook, struggles, postures, and reads X to try to figure out what's going to happen next. So, guys, so much to talk about regarding where we stand on this situation. And we're largely going to talk about this situation. As I said at the end of the program, we'll have some special holiday things I hope you will enjoy. According to latest from Jake Sherman of Punchbowl, Anna Paulina Luna just came out of the Speaker's office and said there will be a vote on something very similar to yesterday, which, if true, would make Sean Spicer incorrect. She said Republicans are not going to negotiate with the Democrats. She said there'll be a vote at 10, but I doubt that's true.
Well,
Um,
I just texted
yeah.
someone, one of the members in the meeting right now said that they're still in the meeting with the speaker and the VP elect. So
And
I have a
is a
hard time.
Freedom Caucus meeting or a different group?
Freedom Caucus.
Yeah. Well, okay. So it probably didn't start at
Nice job,
7:45.
Sean.
If it did, it's a long meeting. Sean, keep us posted. All right.
By the
Donald
way,
Trump.
whoever Kenneth Woods, we need to call on him today because that's the best background. Can we just tee him up, whatever he wants to ask?
All right. All right. We'll get to Kenneth Woods in a minute. All right. So last night, Donald Trump weighed in on Truth Social about the situation. Put that up, please. That's 101. And he was defiant about the debt ceiling. A lot of the people who voted no, a lot of the House Republicans who voted no, and a lot of the Democrats voted no, did it because they didn't like the inclusion of suspension of the debt ceiling for 2 years. And and people think it's got to be dropped. The Democrats don't want it in because they're afraid Trump will use it to cut taxes without accountability. The Republicans don't want it in because they never like to raise the debt ceiling. This morning, Donald Trump, also on Truth Social, said this. Number 102, please. If there's going to be a shutdown, let it begin now under the Biden administration, not after January 20th under Trump. Love his use of the all caps and the quotes, just the best. This is a Biden problem to solve, but if Republicans can help solve it, they will. That post I don't get, but we'll talk about it. Lastly, I want to show you something just because I want to get everything out there. J.D. Vance last night was from the Hugh Hewitt, Newt Gingrich school, basically saying, bring on the Schumer shutdown, because if they want to shut down, they'll get a shutdown. I think, the vice president-elect, like Governor Walz, popularized the promiscuous use of profanity in the 2024 campaign. The vice president-elect is apparently keeping that up. And if you watch carefully, you'll notice he seems fine using profanity in front of little children and animals. Roll. 103.
Mr. Vance, will you accept any deal that does not include a debt limit increase?
Look, I'll say one thing. The Democrats just voted to shut down the government, even though we had a clean CR, because they didn't want to give the president negotiating leverage during his first term, or during the first year of his new term. And number two, because they would rather shut down the government and fight for global censorship bullshit. They've asked for a shutdown, and I think that's exactly what they're going to get.
38 Republicans vote against it as well. What's the path forward, Mr. Vance?
Come on, guys.
What will be your policy in Syria?
Are you meeting with Speaker Johnson tonight to regroup?
Out of this, I say with presumption of grace towards J.D. Vance, who's a very nice man, that I do not like profanity in front of children. Happens on the streets in New York all the time.
Full disclosure, Mark, that's his dog and his children. So,
well, I know. I don't know. It makes it any better, though.
no, I'm just saying they probably heard it before.
Yeah. All right. Not a good look as far as I'm concerned. Again, nice man, great dad by all accounts, but I don't think he should be doing that. And whatever. All right. There's lots of strands to discuss, including what's going to happen next. And we try to be forward looking, but I want to talk about two things that are seemingly backward looking, but with implications for going forward. The first is 30 House Republicans defied the explicit request of Donald J. Trump. Sean, why did they do that? Like, they could have all just voted yes and headed home. Why did they vote? Why did they vote no?
I texted with a couple of them last night. I mean, their view is we didn't come here to increase spending. We're not going to be part of the problem. And by the way, I don't see from my conversations with some of these folks last night, they're not backing down. They're like, this is a principle thing.
So what did they want to vote for?
A clean CR
through March with nothing else on it, not even disaster relief?
I don't think the date was the issue.
Well, but do they want disaster relief?
No, clean CR.
Clean CR. All right, Dan, what does it mean for Donald Trump's power? For days we've been talking about him as like King Kong, Godzilla, King of the Hill, controls the whole thing. He couldn't have been more clear. I killed this thing, vote for this thing, they vote no. What does that say to you?
Well, some of us weren't saying he was Godzilla, that once he had to start governing, we would see the messiness and he'd start burning Capitol down. It tells me that the no caucus is going to be the no caucus. And this is a problem because the only way that he can get around them is going to be to cut deals with Democrats. And then you get into this idea of, will the base accept cutting deals? And I think, as you say, Mark, the last month, the way it's been talked about is like he has a full head of steam and he's going to just flatten everybody in front of him. But these House members have been doing this for 15 years. People have threatened primaries, and here they are.
So can
Dan,
I just lay the land for everyone?
Yes,
Johnson had to go through the motions last night of showing Donald Trump, hey, look, your debt ceiling thing, I'll do it for you, but it's not going to pass. He had to show him that it wasn't going to work. And so what's going to happen today is they'll try to get a purity vote. The problem is that, Anna Paulina Luna, as Dan, I think, or you referred to with that Jake Sherman quote, if they go it alone and then try to send it to the Senate, the question is Schumer right? And so exactly. So their problem is, from a strategic standpoint, they're going to go with all ours. They're trying to get all ours on board in the House. then they would send it to the Senate that would reject it, and then they got to. I mean, I'm just telling you. Here's the crystal ball. Shutdown happens tonight. They work through the weekend. Sunday night at 7:42, they're going to come to a deal, but they have to go through these machinations as a family.
And
Yeah.
this is what they did. If you recall, this is what Boehner did when Ted Cruz insisted on shutting it down. And they had to go through all of this. The problem, though, is it's not just Chuck Schumer. Tom Tillis in the North Carolina delegation is going to say, no way, because we need the disaster relief. Like, it is going to be bipartisan. Nope, a clean CR doesn't work for us in the Senate.
It's hard to game out what Democrats will demand once the bazaar is open, right? Because they don't seem to be in a mood to settle for anything or to cut a break to Trump or Johnson or Musk. And they like the original deal. And so anything short of the original deal.
I said this yesterday. This is why you do a short-term CR and say, guys, we'll kick the can to January 5th, 6th, 7th. We'll come back. We'll deal with disaster aid, the bridge, all your other stuff, the farm bill. But you have to keep it short and nuanced in order to, because Republicans can actually turn the tables right now and say, hey, we're keeping the government open for 10 days. Democrats are against it. Why?
Well, so if that happened, right, Trump wants the debt ceiling out of the way. And I see why he does. So you could conceivably do that between January 3rd or January 6th and January 20th. So in other words, Trump might support a short-term CR. He might, right? But we don't know that. Just to go down my list here, I'm stunned at how little Trump is being blamed since last night. From last night to this moment, there's like almost nothing in the media or from Republicans or even from Democrats saying Trump's a Trump. Trump's a chump. He killed a bill that had bipartisan support. Now he proposed his own thing. He strongly urged people to support it. Why is he not being blamed for what's going on?
I think it's because Musk got out in front of him first. And so what you're hearing is this, like, it's Musk who did this, which I don't think is a smart strategy.
Let me just say, Musk was given credit / blame for killing the Plan A. Yep. But Musk was not a huge supporter of Plan B, not as strong as Trump was. I'm not even sure. Did Musk tweet in support of Plan B? I don't even know that he did.
No. Don Jr. has.
He certainly wasn't as out there as Trump. Trump was like, this is my plan. Everybody vote for it. All right. Shutdown politics. We've talked about it the last couple of days. I just think it's very hard for Republicans to win a shutdown. JD can go out and say with profanity, this is their shutdown. They want it. But I can almost guarantee you, I will put my knowledge of how media works and how the public receives shutdown coverage. I will put my entire career credibility on the line to say, if the Republicans don't have a really innovative plan to win this, they will lose this. Their leverage will dissipate after a shutdown. That's my premise. Anybody disagree?
I think the problem is you have a current president of the United States. The people still, at some point, you have to go. There actually is a president. We may not hear from him or see him, but he still is the president.
But Democratic presidents don't get blamed for shutdowns.
And there's no division on the Democratic side today. That could change. I mean, the thing is, whether you put up Biden, Jeffries, or Schumer, it's going to be a consistent message. If you put up Johnson, Trump, and Thune,
all over the map,
isn't necessarily a consistent message. So the problem is their party is divided, our party is united. And I think
you're united around nothing, Dan. You're united around opposition.
No, they're united around the original deal. They're united around Elon Musk has too much power. They're united around the Republicans are killing cancer research. It's all the normal stuff. And it's all the stuff the press will cover and say, there was a deal. It helped people with cancer. It helped people with disaster relief.
And it was bipartisan.
It was bipartisan, and it was signed. And it was, as Stevie Wonder would say, it was signed, sealed, and practically delivered. And the press is going to say this is the Trump, Musk, Johnson shutdown. Can't these guys shoot straight? That's what's going to happen unless there's some innovative plan.
They did it at the last minute. They didn't do it a month ago.
Exactly.
They did it 48 hours out. And again, I think this is where it's key. Trump did not come out and say this is a bad deal. It was Elon Musk on X, and the swirl started, and Trump was like, "Oh yeah, me too." So it looks like it's an out of control force majeure, thing. And
Sean, pretend you're Hogan Gidley. I know that's like a step up, but look, if you were in the room right now with Musk,
that's not nice.
if you were in the room with Musk, I apologize, with Musk and Johnson and Vance, and they said, Sean, we're pretty sure there's going to be a shutdown. We're pretty sure the coverage is going to be, this is our fault. What's our message? What's our strategy for winning the argument so that when there is a deal, whether the deal is for a short-term CR or in January, what's our strategy so that we get what we want out of this bill and we're not rolled by Schumer and Jeffries?
So I believe that they need to demonize the old bill. We had a 1,547-page monstrosity that gave a raise to members.
But it was a Republican to negotiate
Hold on,
bill.
that's okay. Republicans control one, but you're asking me what the message is versus the reality. The message.
Well,
Reality,
what I'm saying is, if you come out as the press secretary for the Schumer shutdown, I'll say, Mr. Spicer, you're demonizing a bill that was written by and approved by your own Speaker of the House.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the members didn't realize that there was a pay raise, an exemption for them. I mean, we go through everything and then say, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to keep this absolutely clean. We're going to extend the fund for the government, and then we're going to deal with these individual issues as standalone bills, let them stand and fall as they may right away on December. I mean, put a plan together, says, hey, here's what we're going to do with each of these other issues.
I think there's no way, if Democrats are going to do a short-term CR, it's going to go in past January 20th because they are going to make Donald Trump own this stuff. You can sit there because, Sean, you said this before. The problem is the No Caucus won't do storm relief. The No Caucus will not do.
Well, no. They will if it's paid for.
They will if it's paid for.
But it won't be paid for.
But look, if you do it to January 3rd, though, you don't have Trump as president, but you do have Republican majority in the Senate.
But they want, look, the problem for our party is we always get asked to do the debt ceiling because it's the right thing to do. The fact that Trump is tweeting to 2029 is the biggest sign of political weakness I've ever seen. He is terrified of having to do this and 2 reconciliation bills because he's going to say, if I cut taxes, it won't raise the deficit. I'm going to cut $2 trillion, isn't going to do anything. No one's going to be harmed. He doesn't want to have to go and beg his own party to deficit spend additionally, pass all of this stuff that they're not going to pay for because they don't want to have to start trying to cut programs. And he doesn't want to go into this. So it's the ultimate like white flag of you do it, you deal with it. In fact, do it for my whole term so I don't have to touch this thing.
Well, but if he gets it, he'll be happy. So I don't think he'll care.
That's a big if.
So Sean, I think your answer is the answer, and I'm not even sure why they need to wait for a shutdown. Assuming you can get Schumer to pass a short-term CR to January 3rd, and just challenge him just to say it's the holidays. Let's deal with this after the holidays. Then January 3rd, you have the Senate. You have Senate control, and then you send somebody to Biden's desk and make him sign it.
Right.
Yeah. So the question is going to be, well, if they can get that done, will Schumer pass that?
I think Schumer wants to exact as much pain as possible. He does not want to help these guys.
Well, but he's helping them. But he's helping them if he lets Trump and Johnson negotiate this with Thune as majority leader. That's a big help for Trump.
Right, but he gets nothing out of it politically, and I think Schumer wants a pound of flesh.
Yep. You want our votes?
So you're saying he won't pass a short-term CR till January 3rd.
The problem is that in the world that I describe, Republicans are on message and go out there and say, this is what we're doing. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening. And you're going to have 5 divergent messages. Therefore,
if Schumer is offered a clean CR through January 3rd and turns it down, then I think actually calling it the Schumer shutdown could work.
I agree. Okay.
I agree with you. But you know what I think they would do? I think Schumer will turn around with the Georgia senators and say, we're putting the disaster relief on. I will not let the Georgia people go at Christmas without their relief. If you're Ossoff, this is your chance to say there's value in being a Democrat. And then he's going to dare the Freedom Caucus.
Brilliant. All right, Sean, then what does the House do?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is we're talking about 5 days. There's plenty of money in the pipeline. We know that. So it's not like the money. We're at the wit's end here with respect to disaster relief or FEMA funding. So they've got plenty of money right now. This is like money that will help them like long term. So it's a little bit of a crying wolf situation.
Yeah. You're nearly as good as Hogan Gidley. That was excellent. Sorry. All right, we're going to get to your questions after one more topic. So if you want to be in the conversation and you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. Joe Biden, of all the things that have happened during this transition, where he has been, MIA and just out of the picture, this is incredible. I mean, what's happening now with him is incredible, right? Completely out of the picture. Washington, Tutla, Washington is still buzzing about yesterday's Wall Street Journal story, which does the best job anyone's done yet chronicling how Joe Biden, throughout his presidency, not just at the end, was protected by the coterie of aides who understood his mental decline, his acuity decline was something that needed to be shielded from donors and members of Congress, the media, and others as much as possible. That story barely scratches the surface. I haven't even started my deep reporting on this topic, and I've got way more than they had, I say with respect to the Journal, because they did a very good job. But that story, combined with what's going on with Joe Biden, Dan, what does it say about the end of the Biden presidency that he is so MIA as his own government is on the precipice of being shut down?
It's sad. I think it really is the capstone to what has been a kind of slow decline throughout his 4 years. And nobody would say it's good to just go completely out of sight, right? If you're frustrated that you were run out of the race because people think you're too old and you're not up to the job, you would think out of pride you would want to do things to show like, nope, I am fully capable of doing this. And I passed the baton on to the new generation because I just thought it was the right thing to do. He can't do it. So this goes to the whole thing of like he didn't go to Notre Dame because for whatever reason they didn't want to put him out there. And now here it is. It's a shutdown. His party's unified, so it's not like he has to go out there and fight the losing hand. He can't do it. They cannot risk another day where he just embarrasses himself. And the story is not what we just talked about. The story is that the president is, really not there.
Well, how embarrassing is it beyond that his own party isn't asking for him? No one's saying we need the president to get involved, the vice president to broker a deal. She literally turned her motorcade around last night. I think somebody was like, this doesn't look good.
Yep.
But that I think is the bigger issue, right? No one in the Democratic Party is saying we need Biden to get involved. He's the grandfather of the Senate. He can help broker this deal. That was what his role was under Obama.
Yeah.
And here you have a guy who's not only not there, but his own party isn't looking for any kind of leadership from the current president.
Yeah, I mean, look, it goes to the same reason that they ran him out this summer, which is that the leadership all knew this was true. They all knew that there was no way he could recover because if they put him out there more, he was likely to do it again. And so to your point, Sean, the leadership's just like, yeah, time to move on.
All right. We've got some very opinionated folks in our community who think, they want to weigh in. And I'm trying to figure out who to call on first. I like to go outside the Beltway. I don't like to just have Washington insiders like the two of you. So let's go to a young man from Georgia who thinks we have this all wrong, I'm told. Mr. Speaker, thanks for joining. What do we have wrong?
Well, I think this is a lot like all the conversations during the presidential campaign, where the ups and downs, the ins and outs, they really seemed important in Washington, and they just didn't matter. The country looks at a Congress that's totally dysfunctional, a current president who's totally absent without leave, and Donald Trump at least trying to get something done. And I think they go, well, this must be really hard. But I think as long as Trump keeps pounding and he keeps trying to get something done, he looks fine. The Democrats look like they are who they are, the party of government. And I think, again, as you said a while ago, J.D. Vance and I are on the same page. I am very comfortable if the Democrats turn out to be totally dysfunctional and are willing to close the government, which they value, and the spending, which they passed. And I think most of the country will go, okay, that's fine. I mean, all the government employees who weren't coming to work won't come to work. But I don't think there's a great sense of anxiety outside of Washington about what's going on. The long-term question is, can Trump figure out a strategy to gain working control of the Congress? And that's going to be the number one issue for him domestically for the next 2 years. Because he can't pass his tax cuts, he can't pass the major changes until he figures out how to have a working majority, and whether you can do that with a Republican Party that has at least 20 members who will capriciously vote no on everything. It's hard. This is a really big challenge, maybe a bigger challenge than winning the presidency.
Well, we saw a lot of them capriciously vote no yesterday after Donald Trump explicitly told them not to. So how is that solved? I agree with you. Long term, it's a big issue. How is it solved in the next week?
I think they probably eventually get a clean CR of some kind.
All right,
But I think
Sean was at least right about that.
Yeah, but I don't think if I think from Trump's perspective, there's no great rush to do this. I mean, if the Biden presidency ends in chaos and the Biden presidency ends with government shutdowns, and Biden looks like he's totally absent and the Democrats look like they're totally negative, I'm not sure from Trump's standpoint that's not a pretty acceptable way to enter the new term. So I think he has strategically a much stronger hand than people in Washington think.
I'm semi-convinced. I'll tell you what's different. I'll tell you what's different about this is national parks being closed over in December is not as big a deal, right? Because I don't know how much people are using national parks in December. But government employees not getting paid over in the run up to Christmas, don't you think that will be something that gets a lot of attention?
Do you think the average American who believes 50%, according to Gallup, 50% of all government spending is waste, and who believes that 95% of government employees are sitting at home, you think they're going to go, oh my gosh, this is terrible? They're going to go, that's fine. Unless it affects them. Now, if you're the government employee, that bothers you. But you've seen state governments go through stuff like this. Times you've seen state governments pay in script because they couldn't figure out how to get their budget done.
Well, and let's also be real. There hasn't been a shutdown. I was there in '94 with the speaker. I mean, since multiple shutdowns. The bottom line is these government employees know they're all getting paid back. I mean, this is a joke. The idea that they go without pay is not true. They just get I mean, I'm sorry that this is, but no one buys that this is going to be a problem.
I think the average American, this is a gamble, Mark. I believe, as a good hardline conservative, that the average American believes Washington has to be deeply shaken up. And if the process of shaking up Washington involves pain, confusion, turmoil, and lots of people sucking their thumb and walking in circles, that's fine. At least Trump's shaking up Washington. And
all right, I'm even more convinced now, but I'm going to let Dan come in. Dan.
Well, look, I agree with the speaker. Democrats should not be defending the status quo. Nobody in this environment. I think the problem is people look negatively at the government until that government service is cut off. And then they say, wait, my government service that I'm receiving, A, B, C, and D, is good. It's everyone else's that is a waste, and turn it back on so it doesn't negatively impact my life today. And I think the problem is getting from here to there where people don't feel pain. And if it's during the holidays and it's for 30 days or more, that becomes a challenge because, to the speaker's point, once Trump gets in office, he still has the no caucus. So he's going to have to come to Democrats and cut a deal. So I don't see how that's different. I mean, the terms will be a little bit better for Trump, but he still has a problem that he has a significant bloc with a narrower majority next year that won't negotiate with him.
Yeah, I think this is the most important and most interesting challenge of Trump's first year in office. Yeah. And I think, on the other hand, I think he's really smart, and I think that he now knows he has a problem. I think eventually he'll figure out a solution. My only point is the average American who just voted for change is pretty happy to see that Trump actually wants change. They would have been more unhappy to have had the 1,500-page bill passed because it would have looked like a total repudiation of the election.
All right, I have two more questions. You got time for two more questions?
Sure.
Okay. Do you think Speaker Johnson will continue as Speaker? And if not, who will be Speaker?
I think the odds are better than even he'll stay as Speaker because, look, I was fired after 4 years. Boehner quit in disgust. Ryan quit. McCarthy was fired by the caucus. It's a tough job. And but I think you look around and say, so who's going to replace him? You know,
Yeah.
Johnson is doing the best he can in an almost impossible situation. And he's learning how to work with Trump. Trump wants him to bring up, you know, the debt ceiling. He brings it up. Now, I think he also has to offload on Trump. Find me the last 20 votes. I'll do everything you want. I
Right.
can't find the last 20 votes.
Right. So that's my next question. So they're not employees of Donald Trump. And
Right.
and as we all know, the culture has changed. They've got independent bases of fundraising and media access and social media. But in the end, it seems to me the only solution that I can think of is somebody says to them, I don't know if it's Donald Trump or Susie Wiles or J.D. Vance or Speaker Johnson, somebody says to them, the only way we will succeed is if at the end of the day, once we've had it out, negotiated, twists and turns, is everybody agrees we're all going to vote for the final product. That's the only way we're going to succeed. And if you all won't vote for the final product because you'll be the enemy of anything that passes because someone in the Twitter doesn't like it, we're going to fail. And just say we're not going forward with you if we can't trust you to vote for the final product. Would that have a chance of working?
I don't know, man. At some point, somebody just needs to give the hardliners a little lesson on Eisenhower, Nixon, and Reagan, all three of whom concluded that it was easier to cut deals with the Democrats than it was to deal with the hard right who get up every morning saying, I know the answer is no, what's your question? And so they just have to decide. But I mean, the president will find a technique for controlling the Congress. Now, whether that technique involves dealing with the House leadership on the Democratic side, or whether it involves selectively wooing 20 or 30 Democrats. I mean, it's important to remember, he will be president. He will have $6 trillion every year. He will have huge capacity to do things. And, you know, it's not a foregone conclusion to me that somehow overnight Trump's going to turn into this helpless pawn of the Congress. But also, I mean, in my judgment, because I'm a fanatic about this, you have to go to the country. The country has to it's not Trump saying to Chip Roy, it's 50,000 people in Chip Roy's district saying to Chip Roy. Now, then all of a sudden you've changed everything. And that's what Reagan did brilliantly. And you may remember that this great line from O'Neill, who said after 46 Democrats voted for the tax cut in 81, O'Neill goes, we had this tidal wave of phone calls. It was terrible, you know, because the country spoke.
Right.
And I think that's part of what you have to do.
All right, let's bring in another son of the South, former North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory. Governor, welcome in. Haven't seen you in a while. Happy holidays.
First of all,
what do you think of all this?
Congratulations, Mark, on a great year. And both of you also, really, you provided a great service, and it should be recognized at the end of this year.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate that. Thank you. Do you have a question or comment?
Well, the question and comment is that I actually went back to No Labels the last 2 weeks, went to D.C., and they had a heck of a turnout among Democratic and Republican senators and congressmen and women. Is there a chance, after what happened last year with the presidential ticket and so forth, which I was very active in, that they could play a role in finding a coalition that is desperately needed? And I mentioned one name on the Democratic side, which I was very impressed with, is which the Democratic Party needs desperately, and that was Congresswoman Perez from Washington State. She blew the room away. By the way, she cussed just like J.D. Vance, and my dog heard the cussing, I might add, very offended, but she'll take it. She grew up on the streets. But a congresswoman like Perez and some other populists in both parties forming a coalition to make something happen through something like No Labels, could that work? Is that another alternative? Because I'm telling you, they were very visible in D.C. just last week, and both senators and congresswomen. And I'll say one other thing about North Carolina. If the emergency assistance is not provided, somehow Senator Tillis, who's a very good friend of mine, and Senator Budd would have to really do a heck of a communications job to tell the public that the money's already there for at least the short term. And that would have to be part of the deal. I'm sure the new governor of North Carolina, Democrat, would take advantage of that and try to communicate another message, which would be an interesting dynamic if the Democrats try to pile on, because right now the Democrats have gotten a major hit on very poor response, and the Biden administration and the governor have been partially blamed for that. So that's my question. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Sean, and then Dan, what are the prospects of some sort of bipartisan?
So
we've seen on immigration, there are already conversations.
yeah, I would just tell you that MAGA world doesn't want conversations. They want actions. I don't want a bunch of bipartisan. I mean, I don't. We won convincingly. We won the popular vote, the electoral vote. We made gains with minorities. I don't want to sit around and play footsies with a bunch of people on the left and figure out how to do bipartisanship. I want action. I want it to stop. It doesn't take bipartisanship to close the the border. It doesn't take bipartisanship to cut the deficit. So I don't want a bunch of meetings. I don't want a bunch of commissions. I want action. And I think I speak for a lot of people in MAGA world when I say that. So I don't, if they want to join, get on the bandwagon, which I think we've seen with some Democrats with respect to Doge, God bless them. You got ideas about how we can cut government, I'm all for it. But we don't need a bunch of bipartisan meetings to figure out how to cut taxes, how to close the border, how to cut government.
But I would say the only thing that Perez from Washington State is more conservative in the viewpoints and more direct than many of the.
And that's why what I'm saying, Governor.
People.
What I'm saying, Governor, is if they want to join the effort, which we've seen, like I said, on the Doge effort, where some Democrats have said that they'd be willing to do that, then God bless them, jump on the bandwagon. But there's a difference between doing that and having some kind of brokered, you get this and we get this. This is why Washington is broken. So that's number one. Number two, I agree with you on the spending, that your senators and your members of Congress would have to come back and explain, hey, look, there's this much in the pipeline, which we know there is. And if your new governor wants to lie to the people of North Carolina by saying that there's not enough money, and there is, they'll find out real quick. And I'm sure that will be held against them. So, I mean, either there is or there isn't. And by every estimate under the current administration, there's plenty of money for disaster relief, FEMA. So I'm very sympathetic to what the folks down there are going through. And I think the longer that we put it off, the harder it is to remember the long-term needs that they have. So I'm not in any way minimizing the effect or the concerns, but this is not the goal of a short-term, of a CR, is to make it a Christmas tree and everyone gets an ornament. So I think that we should deal with that. We should figure out, but let me just say one last thing. The people of North Carolina went through a ton of havoc, wreaked their businesses, whatever. And the number that they came up with was $100 billion. They didn't even try to fake it. It wasn't even like 101.7. Like Speaker Gingrich talked about the frustration. Seriously, the $100 billion, that's so coincidental that's how it came exactly out to $100 billion. It doesn't pass the smell test. And this is what's wrong with Washington, is somebody went, you know how much they need? About $100 billion. Okay, let's just write the check.
Oh boy. I tell you what, good luck if your message to people is you already have enough money and it's an ornament on a Christmas tree. I mean, that is, Joe Biden has said, you guys, we've given you all the money you need. And during the campaign, we heard, not enough, you're not doing a good enough job. So there is tremendous irony in that holiday
message. That's not the message.
Yes, that would be coming. And I will say the $100 billion was not for North Carolina. There is, I think, $10 billion for the state of Florida. I wonder how Ron DeSantis and the Florida delegation feels about the Tampa cleanup. It's lots. It reminds me of the great Ted Cruz, Michael Bennet fight, where Ted Cruz went to war against money for floods in Colorado. A year later, there were floods in Texas. And Ted Cruz was pleading with people to please add money for the poor people of Texas, to which Michael Bennet just went to the floor and eviscerated Cruz for the hypocrisy. But look, I think the challenge, to go like, Governor, I actually think what you said has some possibility in that. I go back to what Newt Gingrich said. Democrats should not defend the status quo. Like, nobody likes these giant bills where everything is stuffed into it. And we don't want to be sitting there just saying, well, this is how the town works. And you people, stay in the other end of the pool. And like, this is how it's done. I think the flip side is Republicans, like what Sean described, is about 35 to 40% of the country. All of Trump's vote did not vote for hardline MAGA change. That last like 10%, the last mile of the electorate, wants compromise and stuff done to make their lives better. They don't like the status quo. They're not bomb throwers. And so I think we Democrats have overread these mandates, like see Obama when we had 60 Senate seats, huge House majorities, and Obama won by, I think, 8 points. Donald Trump won by less than 1.5%. They lost seats in the House. They gained a few seats in the Senate. But if Republicans take this as a massive mandate to just, we're not negotiating with anybody, I think it'll be to our benefit.
Dan, I don't think, I mean, Trump said this during the campaign. These are common sense things. We're $36 trillion in debt. We have an open border that's allowing, the report came out today. The number of people legally entering the country was a record in the last 4 years.
Yeah,
At
but
some point, it's not partisan to do the right thing.
But hold on, Sean, I haven't heard a single cut to the deficit in these talks. So I agree on immigration, but the problem is your wasteful spending is another member's necessity. So the problem is the only way that you get people to compromise is to say, I'll help you, you help me. So, I mean, look, people can shake their heads, but why should someone from New York City vote for the farm bill? They don't have farmers in their district, but why should someone in a farm district vote for something?
They eat food.
Well, they can buy it from a lot of different places. I mean, that's how compromise is made. So I just think if you say, like, there's too much deficit, please show me all the cuts. Because right now I only hear 30 members of the Republican Party signing up for that. The other 190 aren't for it.
Patty, add your voice.
I don't know enough about the strategy of solving this, but
you don't need to
That's
talk,
all right. We don't either.
that.
Don't worry.
Tell us what you think.
that's why I
about
love
anything.
to listen to all of you. I'm wondering, Elon Musk, if he were running the country, because I think we're just seeing the beginning of his opinion in a lot of these tweets. If you look at how he runs his company, he sleeps on the factory floor. He tries to do it with 10 people instead of 1,000. He does it in 2 hours instead of 2 years. He's looking at things. I think we're just seeing the beginning of how he's going to operate in Doge. And I'm wondering if you agree with that and what that adds to the complexity, because I think he looks at everything in the government. This is my opinion, but he's just seeing this is a bunch of baloney and let's just start cutting. What do you think?
Kenneth, hold on one second. Let the Kenneth in and then you guys respond.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Well, I actually had a question, but do you want me to chime in on that? Or what?
Is a question on a different topic?
I mean, it's roughly, it's about Trump and Musk.
Yeah, please go ahead.
My question to Sean was, do you think that the psyop that the media and the Dems are clearly undertaking right now to drive a wedge between Trump and Musk, do you think that's going to work? I mean, I got to give PBD credit because he called this out like a month ago, that this was going to be the play. And I feel like their relationship has more long-term ambitions than, your standard relationship. So I wonder if they're aware that this is kind of the Dems play right now.
Yeah. Two great questions. Sean, address them both, please. Then Dan.
Thank you. I would just say I'm glad you called that out. Last night, I know a guy named Dan Turrentine that was on Fox, and they were playing these clips of every Dem member and media personality saying, President Musk, this is the new talking point of the left, that it's really President Musk pulling the strings, the only thing that I think is interesting is that clearly you're right. There's an attempt that they're going to try to get under President Trump's skin. You saw this with Steve Bannon in the first administration, where when he went on the cover of Time magazine, President Trump was like, I'll have nothing of that. So I think it's an interesting point and one to keep going. They clearly want to drive a wedge between the two. We'll see if it works. I think there's something very different about Musk because he is the world's richest man. Trump loves to be associated with people who are very wealthy, very popular, very famous, very successful. And I think Musk obviously defines all of that. So I don't know if he is the anomaly that, sort of the unicorn of people in Trump's orbit that doesn't get attacked. And then, Patty, I would just say, look, I think the million-dollar question that you're asking is, Washington and the bureaucracy loves to fight back. Dan mentioned this earlier. Everyone's got a constituency and everyone's got a job that depends on something. So do people fight back? The last thing I would say is, look, having been in and out of government in the military, there are rules written about how certain things operate that in some cases actually make sense. In some cases, they're actually ridiculous about how we have to do business. And there are some things that don't, from a private sector standpoint, make absolutely no sense in terms of duplicity and inefficiency, but the government has written them a certain way. So Elon may identify some of those things and say the private sector would never do that. And he's right, but the government regulations mandate a certain way that things have to get done. So the question is going to be, when the rubber hits the road, what are people willing to do? And how much are we able to stand by them? I would urge both him and Vivek to start, as I've said many times, highlight the easy stuff, show people the inefficiencies, the waste in government, and get them bought into the system, much as Speaker Gingrich did in the lead up to the contract with America. Because people need to see in very tangible ways, like when you talk about like inefficiencies in a procurement process, it's like, if you talk about the fact that like these toilet seats in the Pentagon cost $78,000, people are going to be outraged. So they need to start with things like that.
All right. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you'll continue to see Democrats try to drive the wedge between Musk and Trump, just given Trump's history of a short fuse. And there's only one star in the movie at all times, and that's Donald Trump. I think on Musk, to Sean's point, the challenge is when Musk runs his companies, he's the CEO. If you don't follow what he says, he fires you, right? He's the chairman of the board too. There's a co-equal branch in Congress that has two different bodies, and then the courts. And so when they try to cut stuff, the challenge is going to be the people. It's not just Democrats. The famous story is when the Navy wants to get rid of a ship, right? Because it's way too expensive to keep repairing the ship. And they say, we don't want to spend $1 billion to repair it. We'll build a new one for $500 million. Congress defeats that effort because the ship repairs are in, 2 senators' districts in Mississippi, I'm making this up, and Alabama. And those are jobs. So the last part of it is, and it's hard to think about today, in about 18 months, you know what people will start saying? You guys are going to be gone, Trump and Musk. We'll still be here in 2029. So they'll start to lose leverage because it just becomes a voice drowning out. And
Dan, who's the star of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Robert Redford or Paul Newman?
Robert Redford.
Okay.
Catherine Ross.
Oh, good answer.
Probably the right answer.
Don't you think that Musk's influence wants to go beyond 2028 though?
He needs somebody. But here's the thing though. Musk has so many conflicts of interest. Who else is going to outsource everything if Musk wants to go beyond, run for president? Put your name on the ballot.
He can't.
He can't. He didn't serve here.
Kenneth, Patty, and Governor McCrory, thank you all for joining.
Congratulations.
Have a
Merry
great
Christmas.
holiday. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Thank you
Patty.
very
Merry
much.
Christmas to you.
Governor, thank you for your support of the community and for your kind words. All right. It's Christmas time here on Two Way in our last episode. We won't be with you on Christmas, so we're going to do some little Christmas stuff. First up is Dan's gifts for me and Sean that he sent us that we'll be opening right here, and you can all see what we're getting. Sean, ready? Both have our identical envelopes. 3, 2, 1. Open.
All right.
Oh my God, it's still breathing.
All right. Here. Oh, this is very nice. This is what we call a one-of-a-kind gift.
You wrapped it so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
All
We
right,
get
very nice.
our presents early. We don't do our holiday cards early, so we didn't have a card to put with it, which you guys will get later
All right.
on. But
Dan, thank
yes.
you. That's lovely. How can I wear it?
It's a pocket square. It's a morning meeting.
Well, I know, but can I wear it as a like a little? Can I do like a little Red Riding Hood thing with it? Is that
Oh, I
possible?
like that. That works.
Yeah.
That works
Okay.
well.
Just
All
make
right,
sure
thank
my
you.
face is the one that you wear, Mark.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Now I want to show you a gift I got from a valued member of the community. This is from my friend Michael Granoff, who lives in Israel, who's joined us here. Michael Granoff got me this framed reproduction of the vice president's daily schedule. As you can see, it's very well framed, and it says, read it with me, the vice president will be in Washington, D.C., where she will receive briefings and conduct internal meetings with staff. Say it now, these meetings will be closed press. All right.
Great gift. Great idea.
For Dan and Sean. For Sean, here's what I got, Sean. Please put up 104.
Oh, geez.
As you know, I give Sean a hard time nearly every day because for some reason Sean doesn't know how to use the word overstate versus understate. Here, I got Sean a clipping from Semaphore in which they cite a letter from several members of Congress who say the value of access to untainted information cannot be understated. They mean overstated. Sean, you're in such good company with members of the House of Representatives who don't know how to use the word overstated.
Well,
Merry Christmas.
it's nice that Jake Auchincloss actually signed that letter. I feel very connected to my New England roots.
Now, my present for Dan is an acknowledgement of what I mentioned earlier. Not only do people now refer to themselves as Dan Turrentine Democrats, but Dan has leapt off the tiny little platform of Two Ways Morning Meeting to large, bigger stages. Please roll 106.
Well, we're beating this into the ground. Joining us now is Dan Turrentine, co-host of The Morning Meeting, and former Democrat advisor Mary Catherine Ham, Outkick columnist, Fox News contributor. Dan, they were lying to...
Welcome to Jesse Waters Prime Time tonight.
Who is in charge? I don't remember last time we even talked about JD.
You're right. He's planning the presidency when they get rid of Trump.
Stay away from the stairways.
Trump is rewiring your brain.
Buckle up, everyone. This is probably what governing looks like in 2025.
Every day, more and more, it is shocking Biden's absence. Like, part of me wonders, like, where's your manhood?
To you, Dan, is a Christmas designation. Howard Stern, sayonara. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the new king of all media, Dan Turrentine. Merry Christmas.
I loved Mary Catherine Ham's eyebrow when they said the host of the morning meeting, and she went, I've got to tune into this.
I love the fact that you were in 66 2/3% of all Fox News primetime shows last night. Very impressive.
Thank you to
Sean.
you.
Sean, over to you for Christmas remarks.
I'm very grateful this year for everything that's come this year. I'm excited that we've been able to build this community together, and all the comments that people make and the kind remarks that people make, and the platform that has come together in a way that is like no other. I've heard that before. So I'm looking forward to a very, very robust 2025.
Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I love the holiday season, and I'm immensely grateful to you, Mark, for what you've built, and for the invitation, Sean, for your welcoming me and being so gracious, especially those first few episodes when I could barely speak and remember my name some days. And just to everyone on here, thank you so much for everything, and excited for the new year.
So we all three of us have had experiences throughout our career, and I've done a lot of media, and I will say all three of us acknowledge this is an experience like no other. This is a community like no other. And the reason these conversations are like no other are because of your participation. So we're extremely grateful to all of you for being part of it. As we said before, we have lots of new things planned in the new year. We're growing as a company. We have some really generous investors now that's going to allow us to do some new things. So stay tuned for that. We're not here until January 6th. All right. No morning meeting on Monday for the next 2 weeks. No morning meeting. And there's no two-way tonight. If there's massive breaking news, like if Dan gets a primetime show on Fox, we'll come back with a special report. But barring some massive news, again, find something else to do. We're so grateful to you. We know you'll come back January 6th, but we're taking a little bit of a break. And when we do come back, there'll be lots to cover. And as I said, there'll be new shows. Two-Way is not just about politics. It's our anchor right now, but we're going to have programming across a range of other topics in the new year. And we hope you'll join us for those. We'll tell you all about them come January, February. And I'll say again, people say all the time in media, in one-way media, We couldn't do this without you. We do this for you, the audience, right? But it's all one way. They're talking to people. They're not having a conversation. This platform is different. It's why we're so proud of it. It's why we think we'll be successful. And it's why we're so dependent on you and so grateful to you for being a part of it. I also want to thank my colleagues, our colleagues at Two Way, who produce these programs, who promote these programs, who make this all happen. This is a tiny little company that we have, but a very few of our colleagues, very talented, very experienced, are able to bring these programs to you at low cost with high impact. And we couldn't be more grateful to be headed into the new year as a team, ready to bring you more shows, including these two. And stay tuned for more information and news about the two existing programs that we're doing now. This one, The Morning Meeting, and Two Way Tonight. Hopefully we'll have a big announcement in January. Not going to jinx it, but hopefully we will. Thank you very much. Dan, thank you for the beautiful, whatever these are, pocket squares. And thanks again to Michael Granoff for this unique gift. You can wear it as a bib as well. Sean, I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you on January 6th.
See y'all. Thank you.